up guys, welcome back to the channel. Now today I got a quick fix for you, a little backstory on this car. I picked this thing up for basically scrap price. The previous owner of it had had it at several other shops where they tried to diagnose a couple issues that they were having with it. So long story short, the other shop told these guys that it either needed a head gasket or a new engine because the thing was overheating intermittently and they couldn't figure it out. They went ahead and loaded up the old parts cannon and threw everything that they could think of at this thing, and nothing fixed it. What ended up being the problem is that they initially replaced a failed coolant temp sensor with a super cheap, also failed coolant temp sensor. So brand new part, that can't be the problem. So they proceeded to put a ton of other new parts on it. These guys were just sick of putting money into this thing and ready to let it go. I did figure out after some diagnostic that coolant temp sensor was bad, replaced it with a new one, all's good now, thing runs great. One of the recurring issues that I'm having with this thing is when it's wet or damp out, like raining or just, snowing, whatever, I'll have some random misfires with the car. Now typically when you run into something like that where it only happens in a certain situation, that gives you a really good framework to work off of and to try and diagnose the issue that you're having. Now being as it's wet, that's pretty easy to replicate. I took this thing to the car wash and washed down the engine bay, and sure enough, pretty well found it right away. Now this car does have high mileage, it's a little over 200,000, and somehow this thing still has the original tune-up components in it. Spark plug, wires, coils, ignition module. It blows my mind that this thing is made it this long with those components on it. Now, the coils, ignition module, everything there seem to be operating as they should. The issue I'm having is with a little bit of voltage leak out of those spark plug wires, and of course, the plugs themselves just being completely worn out. Now, I've noticed just in normal driving when it's not misfiring that this thing is lacking power and just does not seem to be running as well as it should. So I'm going to dive into this thing and see if I can remedy the power loss, remedy the misfire concerns, and just overall get this thing running better than it has probably in a long, long time. The little tube of stuff that usually comes with your spark plug wires is dielectric grease. You want to make sure you put that on. You also want to make sure you're checking your spark plug gap. On this car, it's 60 thousandths. You can also pick up a little spark plug gapping tool like this, usually under $1 at about any parts store. So just something nice to throw in the toolbox, handy when you need to have it. So after getting the first one done, it's pretty much just copy and paste on the other two. On this 3800 series, it has the little plastic channel that the wires sit into. If you do them in the order that they come out, it makes it less confusing because you can just tuck them right back into that loom. Now the back side of this thing is a whole different animal. There's not a ton of room to work back there, and there are several tricks to this. You could take the dog bone mounts out from the front of the engine and use like a ratchet strap or something along those lines to pull the engine forward to get yourself more room, or you can just tough it out, jam your arm down in there and start taking these things out one by one. Now you can also pull this coolant reservoir out of here to be able to get in on the back side of the engine and get yourself a little bit more room to get your arm down in there. Well, now that we got those things thrown in, why don't we fire this thing up, see how it's running. Well, there we go. Easy as that. Thing's running great. And yeah, I guess I'll have to take it out on a drive and make sure it's doing okay. See how the power feels. Job well done, I guess. Spun the tires. I didn't think the old girl had it in her. The throttle response, just the overall power, this thing's running way better than it has. Pretty happy with it. Let's test out the acceleration on this thing. Just getting turned onto the highway here. And ain't no race car. Now I can already tell a huge difference in this, just in the way it idles, in the way it takes off. Just before, it was real sluggish to take off and would eventually wind up there. Sometimes it would run better, sometimes it would run worse. Now it's a lot more consistent and just runs overall like I think it should. Quick, easy fix on these things. Doing the plugs yourself can save a lot of time, save a lot of money, and get this thing back on the road and running as it should. So anyway, I appreciate you guys hanging out with me. I hope that helped you out, and we'll catch you next time. Thanks for watching.